The shocking lockdown-busting Partygate video, unearthed by the excellent Sunday Mirror, makes the Paris Hilton sex tape look positively dignified. Here it is. Posh boys and girls cavorting around Tory party campaign HQ in wacky Christmas jumpers, joking about bending the rules and making the rest of us, who were sat at home with just Netflix for company, look like complete mugs. The video is damning. Up till now, the rule-breaking within the corridors of power was limited to still images of the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson near a cake, or Rishi Sunak, the then Chancellor, a couple of feet from a glass of orange juice. Hardly crime of the century. But these pictures reflect the eye-watering contempt that those who were making the rules had for the great British public. Whilst they staggered from late-night office to late-night office, happily mask-free, and in the case of Matt Hancock playing tonsil tennis with his married advisor, the rest of us were prevented from meeting loved ones, from going shopping, from going to parties, from going to work, from going to the pub, or even from laying loved ones to rest. We followed the rules and they did not. More fool us. This video will understandably be leveraged by the Labour Party in the run-up to the next election as a reflection of how the Tories behaved during the pandemic. But they can't talk with this damning image of Keir Starmer sipping a beer at what we're told was a work-related event. Do me a favour. In the end, the real scandal were the COVID measures themselves. Most of it theatre, by the way, those filthy, worthless masks which advisers at number 10 were told by their own scientific advisers don't work. Do you remember the bizarre arrows in supermarkets? Empty GP surgery waiting rooms, playgrounds bolted shut, the pathetic spectacle of social distancing in pubs and restaurants. Mask on, it's mask on to have a wee, mask off to sip your pint. Weird curfews at 10 p.m. because the virus doesn't like late nights. A woman arrested at the seaside for sipping a coffee on her own on a bench. Police drones out and about looking for solo ramblers in the Derbyshire countryside. The list goes on. Those in power knew what many of us thought all along, but were vilified for saying, that this was a potentially nasty virus and it took too many of us, but highly age-specific and health-specific, which is why focused protection of the vulnerable should have been the approach from day one. As they danced and cavorted and hugged, it's clear political insiders were not afraid of a virus which had a survivability rate of over 99%. They weren't worried about catching COVID or indeed giving it to their friends and loved ones. Proof, if you needed it, that the draconian Chinese Communist Party-inspired policy of lockdowns was a wild experiment backed up by no data, which served little purpose other than destroying the country. These unprecedented and unproven measures arguably failed as a health measure too, with excess deaths still sky high earlier this year, with numbers as bad as during the pandemic. 2,000 excess deaths a week in February, for example. You would expect excess deaths to be lower, not higher, after these supposedly life-saving measures. And our tragic COVID death toll was no better or worse than countries that didn't lock down at all. What a shambles. Personally, I can't think of a single COVID measure that was worth the damage of a broken economy, an insuperable national debt that we'll probably never tackle, an NHS waiting list of 7 million people, a mental health tsunami, and a generation of damaged kids. And that's before you even get to vaccine tyranny, with a jab arguably not needed by most of the healthy population, including children, and one which didn't stop transmission or infection. What a shambles. So they danced, they partied, and they mainlined Jacob's Creek for months on end, whilst we cowered at home, binge-watching The Tiger King, overdosing on banana bread and living in fear of our lives, thinking this was the bubonic plague. Well, a plague on all their houses. This damning video tells you everything you need to know about what top US medic Jay Bhattacharya from Stanford University in California has called the biggest public health mistake in history. Measures rolled out on a compliant population, but ignored by those in charge because they knew it was nonsense. So, the party's over for the idiots who have done so much damage to this country. We complied with the COVID madness because we wanted it to end, but our compliance meant it never did. Next time, just say no and throw a party of your own.